Okay, so let's begin. We're going to talk about, or wait a second, let me make sure I have this set up right. Click on all buttons here. Make sure I'm sharing. Okay, here we go. Looks like we're in good shape. Apologize for that. Let's get started talking about how to complete the proofreading assignments. Here is an example of an assignment. The first section will give you a little reminder about steps that you might want to take as you proceed with the assignment. And then there's another document that I encourage you to review from time to time to remind yourself about how to go about proofreading. So let's get started with the instructions for grammar proofing assignments. I believe that I have this document associated with every single one of the assignments within the assignment instructions. If it isn't on a particular one, it will be on most of them, and so you might just want to flip through a later one in the semester to pull it up if I haven't put that in that assignment. And by the way, if I haven't, send me an email so I can go ahead and add that. That's just an oversight on my part. Okay, so let's get started. Before we go through what the rules are, let me explain to you the theory behind the rules. These assignments build on each other, and so if you don't do as well on assignment 2, but you get feedback from me and you are then able to apply that feedback, then you're going to see that your grades are going to improve significantly for assignment 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So it's really not that big of a deal if you don't do the best on the first or second or third assignment, because you're building up momentum. You're learning from those mistakes so you won't make them again. So as a result, it's really important that I am able to quickly grade these and get the results to you as soon as possible. It's a very involved process to grade these and really give the feedback. It takes lots of hours. I'm glad to do it, but you can help me get those that feedback back to you as soon as possible so that you can then turn around and improve your grades for next time. So we're kind of in this together. We both want the same thing. We both want you to have the opportunity to get the feedback so you can improve your grades. How can you help me? Well, there's several things that you can do. The first thing that you can do is whenever you want to eliminate something in a sentence, you see something and you look at it and go, that doesn't look right. That violates a grammar rule. Let's look at what we should do. Okay, here's an example of a sentence. Mary and Bob sings the school fight song. Well, all of us know that when we have a subject that is plural, Mary and Bob, we need to have a plural verb. And here we have a singular verb. So we need to make sings go away, and we need to replace it with sing, right? Now, the way we would ordinarily do it if we were revising our own work is we would just remove the S. Mary and Bob sing the school fight song. And that would be absolutely correct. That would be the smart way of doing it. But you can imagine how difficult it is for me to find that correction if that's what you do, to just remove the S. So what I'm asking you to do is actually to do a strikeout of the word you want to remove, like this. And so I highlight it, then I go over here to Word, and you see where they have the ABC strike through? I click on that and it makes the whole word go away. Now, sometimes what students will do is they will just strike out the part they want to, because after all, the only part that needs to go away is the S. And so they strike that out. But you can see that's almost impossible for me to see. And so I'm asking that you not do that. The goal is to make your efforts, your corrections very, very easy to see. That makes it difficult for me not to see what you've done, and so it helps you earn as many points as you can. So I have now marked out the whole word sings, and then after the word I make any changes that I want to. So I'm going to put the word sing in, because that's the word that's correct. But again, this isn't the easiest to see, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and put what I've added in red font. That's easier to see, but let's even make it easier to see, and I'm going to put it in bold. And so there are 3 steps. Strike through what I'm removing, the entire word. Then after it, put the word that I'm putting in its place in red font that is bold. Those are the 2 steps. 3 steps, I'm sorry. Please do all 3. If you do all 3, for most of the assignments, you're going to get 3 points, free points. So it's a way to earn you some extra points. Let's go back to that original sentence and the original form. Let's say the original sentence, make one more. Let's say the original sentence had a comma here. Well, that comma would be incorrect. Again, you might be tempted to just say, well, let me just remove the comma. So I'm going to highlight it, strike through, and there really isn't any need to replace it with anything, so I'll just do that. Well, that's very difficult for me to see. So if you're going to remove a part of punctuation, also remove the word in front of it, like this. So now I've removed the word sings. Well, let's imagine, let me go back here, and let's imagine, oops. Let's imagine that it actually had been correct. So it was just the word sing. So I didn't need to make any change to the word sing, but I have a comma here that I don't need. I'm not just going to remove the comma, I'm going to remove the word sing, even though there's no problem with it. So it's really obvious to the grader what I'm doing. Then I'm going to retype sing without the comma, of course. I'm going to put that in red, and I'm going to put it in bold. So do that whether you're removing a letter, or whether all you want to do is remove a letter, all you want to do is remove a piece of punctuation, or all you want to do is remove a whole word. Those are the 3 steps. For virtually every error that you make or every that you correct, you're going to do all 3 steps. So we see here, this is an example about just what we did. These would be examples of incorrect edits. You can see here I just removed the S. That's hard for me to see, for the grader to see, and so don't do that step. It's hard to see because it's just one change to one letter, and I don't see anything in red or in bold. The next one, this is pretty close to correct, but instead of putting the word change after the word, I put it before the word. Again, that makes it more difficult for me to figure out what's going on. Here I removed 2 words. I removed the word the and the word sings. There's only the need to remove the one word. So err on the side of removing less words. Don't remove unnecessary words. Here's another change. You can see that the reader didn't like the term school fight song. He changed it to college fight song. Now, a school fight song obviously is not incorrect, and college fight song is not incorrect. What we want to do is we only want to make changes to documents that do not comport with the rules of grammar or punctuation. The only exception to that rule is we also do change passive voice to active voice. I have a typo here myself. Here, I apologize for that. Let me add an extra in. So when you are doing it, you want to challenge yourself before you make a change and say, what rule have I identified that is being violated? And you may want to go through your Aspen handbook to find the rule, or of course you could Google it as well if you think that's a better path, or use some other resource. If you find a rule, awesome, great, go ahead and make the change. But if you can't find a rule and you're just thinking it sounds better or it reads better, please don't make the change. The reason for that is that if you make more changes than are necessary, you may be removing an opportunity that you have to make points. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you had this song, the sentence up here, Mary and Bob sings the school fight song, and you think you wanted to say, instead of sing, you don't like the word sing, you want to say trill, that they trill the school fight song. And so you remove sings because it's not the word that you happen to prefer, and you replace it with the word that you think is a better word. Well, I don't know in this situation, it's not obvious to me that you knew that the S was problematic. What I was trying to do when I provided this correction opportunity for you is to make sure that you can catch the fact that you need to remove that S after sings. So when you make an edit that isn't necessary, you sacrifice that point that you would have earned by having removed the S from sings. Also, it makes me wonder, are you really comfortable with the rules of grammar if you're thinking things that are grammatically correct need to be changed? You will see in many of these essays or these paragraphs that they are not well written. It is not part of the assignment that you rewrite it and make it better. I'm sure that you could rewrite it and make it better. You are supposed to be making the fewest possible changes to make it grammatically correct, and also removing the passive voice. That's the assignment. You may want to think about it this way. Imagine that your boss is the one who's written this assignment. Your boss isn't very good at grammar and punctuation, but she has pretty sensitive feelings, and you want to make the absolute minimum number of changes so you don't hurt her feelings or you don't anger her. So if you think about it that way, that might cause you to stop. Hey, let me have a really good reason. I'm going to need to defend that change to my boss. And so if I can't find the really good reason that I need to make the change, I probably shouldn't make the change. So don't make unnecessary changes. Let's go down here and look at a few other changes we might have. We have Mary and Bob sing the school fight song. Well, obviously we only need one and, so I'm going to remove one. I could remove either one. Obviously there's no particular reason I removed the second one. I could have removed the first one. And there's nothing to put in under these circumstances. There's nothing for me to add. So there won't be anything in red, or there won't be anything in highlight. This is an example, not so much of testing you whether you have grammar skills, but also testing whether you have effective proofreading skills. This assignment is designed to get at both. I'll have students who do very, very well identifying the grammar, but they perhaps have missed proofreading opportunities. So be sure to remember we're looking for both types of things. Okay, sometimes it won't be a matter of removing something and replacing it. Sometimes we're just going to remove something. Sometimes we're just going to put something in. There's nothing that we're going to remove. For example, we have Mary and Bob sing school fight song. Well, obviously we're missing the word the, or I guess we could have replaced it with a or some other word. Obviously, all of these edits, there's going to be multiple ways of fixing them. And as long as you're fixing the problem, you can fix it any way you want to, as long as it's grammatically correct. So I'm just going to add the word the, and of course I'm going to put it in red and highlight it. Okay, so here's our original passage. Mary and Bob sing the school fight song. Bob likes to sing loudly. Mary likes to sing rapid. Who sounds better? I don't know, even if Mary is taller. Okay, so I've changed it to Mary and Bob sing the school fight song. Bob, okay, well, obviously we need to start the sentence with a capital letter, and Bob is a proper name, a proper noun, so we need to capitalize that. So I'm going to make Bob completely go away. I'm going to rewrite Bob with a capital letter. I'm going to put it in bold and red. Bob likes to sing very loudly. That is correct. Mary likes to sing rapid. We haven't covered this yet, but rapid, we need an adverb here. This is an adjective. And so we need to make the word rapid go away. We're going to replace it with the correct adverb, rapidly. Obviously, we're going to need to make rapid be struck through, and then we're going to need to make rapidly in red with bold. Who sings better? Well, this is a question. It's a rhetorical question, perhaps, but I guess it's not really a rhetorical question in the situation. So I don't like the period here. I'm not just removing the period. I'm removing the period and the word before. So I'm going to strike this through. I'm going to rewrite the word and the question mark. I'm going to put both in red, both highlighted. I don't. Okay, don't is a contraction. We don't use contractions in legal writing, so I'm going to make the whole contraction go away. Then I'm going to rewrite the words do not, or write the words do not, put it in bold, and put it in red. I do not know. Now this is a sentence fragment, even if Mary is taller. We don't have a full sentence, so we need to figure out a way to make it taller. Even if Mary is taller than Bob, Bob has the deeper voice. So I'm going to need to remove that period after taller. So that means I have to remove the period and the word taller. I'm going to repeat the word taller, and then I'm going to complete this sentence. Obviously, there are a million different ways I could have completed this sentence. This is the way I chose to do it. Most likely you would have chosen a different way, as long as it's grammatically correct. In other words, you have a complete sentence at the end, you're going to be in good shape. So those are the steps to go ahead and do it. Let's just flip on over to the first assignment so you can get a sense as to what's going on. Here's the first assignment. Let me give you a few pointers about how to proceed. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to blow up the font. I find it much easier to find errors if the font is big. I'm also going to space it out. Now I'm going to need to return it to size 12 or 12-point font, and I'm going to return it to the normal spacing. But for this point, I'm just going to make it bigger. Another thing I recommend is to read it aloud, and read it aloud multiple times. So I'm just going to do the first couple of sentences so you can get a feel for it. And what I would do is I would use my finger or the cursor or whatever and go, Mr. Green couldn't prove. Okay, well, I'm not supposed to use contractions. And by the way, this is contractions will be throughout the semester. Usually people remember early on to remove the contractions, but by the end of the semester, sometimes they've forgotten the rule. So you might want to flag that for yourself. That's a common error people make. So I've highlighted the word couldn't. I'm going to hit the strike through button. I'm going to go to this next space. I'm going to type out could not. After the couldn't, I'm going to put it in red, and I'm going to put it in bold. Now I'm going to start from that sentence from the very beginning so I can get a rhythm going. Mr. Green could not prove foreseeability because Mr. Smith didn't. Another contraction. So I'm going to put that in strike through. I'm going to do did not. I'm going to put it in red font and bold. I'm going to start again. Mr. Green could not prove foreseeability because Mr. Smith did not have any knowledge of Mr. Smith's employee being dangerous or harmful. Now, there's a lot of problems with this sentence. It is not well written, but the job is not to rewrite the sentence so it's well written. It's to fix the grammar problems. So if this were my first draft and I was going to go back and alter my own work, I would make all kinds of changes here. But I'm only going to change the things that are grammatically wrong. And I see a couple things that are grammatically wrong. This isn't a question. Let me just read it again. Mr. Green could not prove foreseeability because Mr. Smith did not have any knowledge of Mr. Smith's employee being dangerous or harmful. I have a question mark here, but it doesn't seem like it's a question. So I'm going to mark out the entire word because I want to get rid of the question mark. And I'm going to repeat harmful, period, this time. What will happen oftentimes is when you're changing terminal punctuation is that Word will think that you're starting a new sentence. So you're likely to have to go back and lowercase the first letter. And there we have harmful. There's one more error, but I'm going to go back and read it. And by the way, I highly recommend you read this aloud so you can get a flavor for it. And another strategy is to kind of over-exaggerate maybe the dramaticness of how you might read this, because that can sometimes help you catch problems. Mr. Green could not prove foreseeability because Mr. Smith did not have any knowledge of Mr. Smith's employee being dangerous or harmful. We haven't covered commas in this course, but there is the opportunity to earn extra credit. There will be 20 points available on every assignment for skills that we've already covered in the course. But there will oftentimes be 5 or 6 additional points that you can earn if you find errors that are about things that we haven't covered yet. And so you may think to yourself, well, we haven't covered commas, so I don't really know what's going on here if this is correct or not. Well, fair enough. If you don't want to correct it, you're not certainly not required to do so, but you might want to say, you know what, I want to see if that comma is right. So I'm going to go to that section of the book and see if a comma goes under the circumstance. See if one of the rules says that a comma is appropriate. Because if a comma isn't appropriate, I'll remove it, and then I'll be able to get one of those extra credit points. And in point of fact, this comma doesn't belong in here. So this is by no means a correction that you have to make. It's just an extra credit opportunity. So I'm going to click on the strike through, and I'm going to write dangerous without the comma. Then, of course, I'm going to put it in red. Just so you'll know, the reason that we don't have a comma here is that in order for you to use, this is called a serial comma, you need to have 3 items in the series. Okay, let me just flip over here and do an example. Let's say the sentence was, Billy, let me make that bigger. Here we go, we'll make it this point of font. Billy is tall and muscular. Okay, there are only 2 items in this series. When you only have 2 items, you don't put a comma. That's wrong. But let me add this. Bill is smart, tall, and muscular. Okay, we now have 3 items in the series. Item 1, item 2, and item 3. So now the serial commas are required. We have to have one here. That's I'll say legally required. That's grammar law required. And then this second comma right here, the one right before the and, is what is oftentimes called the Oxford comma. And so that is technically optional, but for this course it is required because almost all legal professionals prefer the Oxford comma. So you need to have it under these circumstances. So it's absolutely mandatory you have this. This is mandatory for this class and is definitely a best practice. A comma under this circumstance is absolutely wrong, and it is worthy of a point deduction. Sometimes people will put a comma here, and this is also absolutely wrong. Now we could have a list that's longer. Let's try that. Bill is left-handed, smart, tall, and muscular. Now we have 4 things in the series. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we get to 3, it really doesn't matter. After all the items in the series, we're going to put a comma. After item 1, after item 2, after item 3. We don't do it on the last item, and we don't do it after and. So that's how that comma rule works. It's called a serial comma rule. And then this last comma is called the Oxford comma. Required for this course. Okay, so I'm going to flip back here and let's look at our sentence again. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. So here we had any knowledge of Mr. Smith's employee being dangerous or harmful. Well, there's only 2 items in the list, dangerous or harmful. Because there's only 2 items, there's no comma. Again, if you forget to do that one, no worries, because again, it's something we haven't covered yet officially in the course. But making this change has made you eligible for an extra point, so why not go for it? Hopefully this description about how to do the proofreading assignment is helpful. Another thing I want to talk about is use Word as a tool to get you through this. Word will give you lots of helpful hints about what you want to do. Now, once you start revising it, Word suggestions aren't going to be too useful because they're going to see this crazy document where you repeat words. But before you actually start, Word will give you some clues. For example, you'll see in my text, there's a green squiggle line there, and there's a green squiggle line here. There's a green squiggle line here. Word is saying, hey, I think something's wrong with these points. There's a red squiggle line here, there's a red squiggle line here, a green squiggle line here, another red squiggle line here. Those points are by no means the only errors, but those are in many cases going to be errors. So now once you make revisions, a Word is going to have all kinds of concerns that aren't legitimate concerns. So use Word as a tool to help you get things right. There are lots of different versions of Word with different functionalities. I'm going to show you how to use some of those functionalities. So I'm going to go here to File. Then I'm going to go down to Options. Then I'm going to go to Proofing, the 3rd item on my list. It may not be the 3rd on your list. And then there's kind of 3 zones on my version of Word. And I click the top 4. You can actually click the other 2. We're not going to do French things or things along those lines. Then I would encourage you to click all of the ones in the middle section, and if you have the option, to choose grammar and style, not just grammar. You don't have to worry about this final section. Then I would go to settings here. And again, depending upon your particular version of Word, you're going to see a variety of options. I would encourage you to probably check all of these. You'll see some things. It will check for fragments and run-ons. It will check for possessives and plurals if you're using it correctly. It'll check punctuation. It'll check to make sure it really is a question. It'll check subject-verb agreement. It'll check sentence fragments. It will check for passive voice. Again, something we'll do later on. It will check for possessives and plurals again, and punctuation. Those are some things that it will check for. These top ones are for you to decide. This is the Oxford comma that we were talking about before. Comma required before last list item. I recommend you choose always. Punctuation required within quotes. That's the American rule. And so yes, you do want it inside. There are a few unusual times in English where we don't want it inside. So sometimes you will break this rule, but this is the rule you'll follow about 97% of the time. So I would encourage you to choose inside. This one is your own call. You can put 1 space between sentences or 2 spaces between sentences, or you can even say don't check. Probably the best practice is 1 space between sentences, but 2 spaces is not incorrect. I didn't make any changes, so I'm just going to hit OK. So consider maximizing the use of your Word. You don't have to, but it is by no means cheating. Keep in mind the reason that we're using Word is that is the tool that you're going to be using in the workplace almost certainly. So I want you to get familiar with its functionality. If it has tools to help you do your job better, please use them. That's smart. When you're out in the professional world, your law firm is going to want you to be as efficient as you can and to use the tools available to you. So let's say I've gone through the whole document. I feel satisfied with it. I've read it several times aloud, going over each word, and I feel like I've got it correct. Now I'm going to return it to its initial stage. Of course, I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to post it within the assignment. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I thank you for your attention, and good luck on the assignments.